Today I'm going to make some English muffin bread. I'd actually planned to go to the garden allotment, but it started to rain. So I hope to do that later because it doesn't look like it's going to rain all day. I can see because I have a panoramic view from my balcony. Anyway, so when I first did this recipe, I did, instead of 5 cups of all-purpose flour, I did 5 cups of unbleached flour. But my intention was to convert it over to using as much whole wheat flour as I could. So the last time I did it, I used 3 cups of unbleached flour and 2 cups of whole wheat bread flour. Today I am going to do 2 cups of unbleached and 3 cups of whole wheat bread flour. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of gluten flour for every cup. Okay, at least. I mean, I could get away with 4 teaspoons of gluten flour, but anyway, I'm going to use a teaspoon for every cup. Anyway, so let's get started. When possible, I use whey in bread instead of water. So if I have a lot of whey, I will use it. Actually, I don't have a lot of whey right now. I need to make some or extract some from milk kefir. Anyway, so I just put it in a cup measure and set it in a dish with water. That's all. This recipe does call for a half a cup of warm water, so instead I will use a half a cup of whey. And as you hear the beeps in the background, that is the microwave warming up the milk, but I will not warm up the whey with the microwave. I had a bit of a dilemma. I didn't have enough whole wheat bread flour. I had 2 2/3 a cup of it. So I had to add 1/3 a cup of regular whole wheat. Now, anytime I make a change to this recipe, I write it down. All right. So I have a record of it. Of course, this looks like a mess, but anyway, I can understand it. See, I've put the date up here. I've upped the tablespoons of dry active yeast. I gave another half a tablespoon of sugar, and you know, that way there's more sugar for the more yeast. And I put just over 2 cups of warm milk, just a touch over, not much. So I'm now going to begin to blend my ingredients together. So I'm going to add the dry ingredients, but I'm going to hold off on the salt until everything is mixed together, all the dry ingredients, that is. So we are going to add, what was it? It was 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. And we're going to add 5 teaspoons of yeast. Now, I forgot to get the gluten flour, so I'm going to go back and get it. All right, I got my gluten flour. We're just going to dump that in. Oopsie-daisy. And then I'm going to start the mixer. I'll mix up the dry ingredients, then I'll add the salt. And then I will proceed to add the wet ingredients. As you see, this is coming together nicely, so I'm going to let it knead maybe between 5 and 8 minutes or so. All right, I'm going to get the dough out of the bowl. I find that always difficult to do, particularly when it's a bit of a drier mixture, such as this. Right. Okay. All right, let's get this onto the cutting board. There we go. Almost there. Excellent. It's a little sticky. That's okay. I'm not going to knead it much. I'm just going to shape it because it's being kneaded in the mixer. Now what I'm going to do is, there we go. I mean, that looks great. Okay, I am going to sprinkle some cornmeal on the cutting board here. And then I'm just going to roll that over. And that's how I'm getting the cornmeal on the top. The glass is my favorite bread pan. I also have this one. But today I want to use this. I bought this at Christmas time. I actually bought a set of 2. The only drawback about this is my shower caps don't fit on it. So anyway, I have greased this with butter and lined it with cornmeal. So let's just drop this in. That's all we have to do now. Just like so. And press it down. So I'm going to let this rest probably about a half hour until it has doubled in size or thereabouts. I still want to get to my garden allotment, so let's see how much this rises. Okay, there. I'm going to bring this over to my oven, and I'm going to let it rise on the oven while it is heating up to 375. So there. There we go. Maybe what I'll do is place this down and just do that. There you go. New trick. Right, I'm going to place this on my oven. Alright, this is what I'm doing today. I cut a Ziploc bag to cover it, and that way it can rise underneath. I usually use a shower cap, but like I said, my shower cap will not fit this dish. That's why I haven't used it until now. But anyway, I've got these Ziploc bags I thought I could repurpose. I'm going to turn it on, the oven. I'm going to turn it to 380. It says 375 in the recipe, but my oven needs calibrating. Anyway, the heat coming from the vent over there will help with the rising of the bread dough. I could bring out my Excalibur dehydrator, but you know what? Yeah, it's big. I'm not going to bring it out for raising bread this time anyway. So there you go. And what I'm going to do now, while the bread is raising, is I'm going to sort mason jars. And I have a question. Who doesn't have a catch-all area for mason jars on their counter? Anyway, I'm going to organize mine, and I'll bring you back when the bread goes in the oven. All right, so this is my pantry. I did a video on my pantry / catch-all cupboard and organized it after. Anyway, I typically do things backwards, so I guess this is a little update on my pantry. There we go. That's where I keep the mason jars for the most part. I need to put away some of the jars on my counter. So I'm going to go about doing that and some other little tasks, and I'll bring you back when the bread has risen sufficiently to go into the oven. So here's the state of the weather. I'm not sure if it's cleaning up or not. I typically look to the west for my weather, and it's still cloudy, but it seems to have stopped raining, which is good. So as soon as the bread is out of the oven, I'm going up to the garden plot. And here's the view from my balcony. There's Toronto, the big smoke. You can't see Lake Ontario very well. Sometimes you can see it, actually. The bread is rising nicely. I'm going to give it about 10 to 15 more minutes, and I'm going to pop it in the oven. Okay, so the bread has sufficiently risen. Here you go. I'm going to put it in the oven, and I'll bring you back in 30 minutes. Put my timer on, will check it because the recipe does say 35 to 40. Anyway, I'm going to put the timer on for 30 and come back then. All right, so the bread is done. We're going to take it out of the oven. There we go. All right, the bread is out. It looks good. I'm going to taste it later. I'm going to cover it for now. It is not as lofty as I would like, but then again, keep in mind where last time I made this bread, I used 3 cups of unbleached flour and 2 cups of whole wheat bread flour. This time I used 2 cups of unbleached flour, 2 2/3 a cup of whole wheat bread flour, and 1/3 a cup of whole wheat flour because I didn't have enough whole wheat bread flour. So, you know, I'm pretty satisfied. I will come back and taste this later, and I'll bring you back when I do that. So I thought I'd bring you back. I'm back from my garden plot. Wow. I guess my Fitbit recognizes weeding as steps. Anyway, I'm going to put some butter on this, and I'm going to have a bite. But there you go. That's what it looks like. I am starving, so there. There, one-handed. It's really tough. That's delicious. So, now I know if I want a loftier loaf, I'll use 3 cups of unbleached flour and 2 cups of whole wheat bread flour. But you know what? This is good enough and it's delicious. Why don't you give it a try?